Hello and welcome to episode 491 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm the bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak. You can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going very well, Andrew. How are you? Not real well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think people have probably been waiting for this episode.
It's time.
I've been tempted to tweet, and I've gone, nah, save it. Save it. Let it stew.
Yeah. But, you know, we're ready now. We're ready.
So let's deal with the stupid old dumb cunt elephant in the room.
Yep.
Tim Sheens has decided he doesn't want to be a coach anymore.
He's decided, do you reckon?
Well, probably.
I think that he was probably sacked.
No.
You don't reckon?
No. Because if he was sacked, he'd be kicking up a stick and bitching and moaning about it like the last time he was sacked.
What we should do. So he comes in, start of last year, to do a review of the football club department.
And you called it immediately. You knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. There's only one outcome that was going to happen.
You can go back to one of the previous 489 episodes. You'll hear it mentioned on one of them.
He comes.
I don't know which one.
He does a review of the juniors. Apparently, he does a review of all of the back football department and everything, the coach and everything. Comes back and says, "Listen, you need to sack Michael Maguire, and there's one coach in the world that can fix this, and it's
only one.
There's only one. Worldwide search. Remember they said they did a worldwide search?
Worldwide search. They scoured the globe. They went to Ghana, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They even looked in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they even went to Oslo, just to be sure.
And the man they come up with, who was recommended by Tim Sheens, was Tim Sheens. And so Tim Sheens got a 3-year deal. But on top of that, he also said that at the end of that 3-year deal, the next coach would be Benji Marshall, and the assistant to that coach would be Robbie Farah.
That's right.
And so the West Tigers locked into 5 years of their coaches locked down. Now, Tim Sheens ended that season.
Let me stop you there too.
Yeah.
Not only did they lock down their coaching structure for the next 5 years, even in that 5 years, they've got a coaching change.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And so while they're still paying Michael Maguire, because when you sack a coach, you've got to pay him out. Exactly. In comes, your next coach, which is Tim Sheens, who was also the football director, I believe. Pretty good deal if you can give it to yourself.
Imagine the luck of being able to find the coach that you need globally, and they've already got a job within their business.
Do you reckon that he woke up one morning, he was shaving, and then he washes his face, and then he looks up and he goes, "It's me. I'm the man for the job." Anyway,
he would have looked at the mirror and he would have just gone, "I've seen this guy before. And I've seen him winning several premierships before. Let's get that guy." Thinking he's watching TV.
Exactly.
He's waiting for the super to come up with the name of the bloke on there.
So
hang on.
The rest of his first year as the new coach of the West Tigers, he gets a wooden spoon. But things are changing. It's a new era. We know the new era. And that's this season. They come into this season and they go even worse and they win the wooden spoon again because they're going to win it, right? Yeah. And so we've gotten to this week where Tim Sheens has apparently stood down, and Benji Marshall, who was being taught how to be a first-grade coach, that's all being sped up. And now Benji Marshall will be the coach going forward from next year. And Robbie Farah is not certain that he wants to be an assistant coach anymore because he's thinking that he'd like to be some sort of management role. But that hasn't been that's just a management role of some sort that I don't know. It's sort of up in the air. The CEO is not talking. And the Chairman Lee, with the funny little hat, he's been talking a lot in the media. He says, right, this isn't a failure. This was always the plan. Andrew, do you have anything to say about these things that have happened?
Finishing last 2 years in a row. That's not a failure.
That's not a failure.
We planned to come last. We're tanking. There's no benefit out of tanking, but we're tanking.
Yeah, yeah.
This is our plan.
It's not a failure. He said so.
Look, Tim Sheens has got a pretty good track record of, at the West Tigers anyway, of failing.
Yes.
And falling below expectations.
Yes.
He's done it quite a lot.
Yes.
He's overrated. I've mentioned this before. And I was saying this before he came back to the club. When he was at the club in 2008, around there, I was saying then he needs to go. He's been here for 5 years. He's been here too long. The club's it was plateauing then. It wasn't going anywhere. And the fact they made the finals in 2010, 2011 was not because of Tim Sheens. It was in spite of Tim Sheens. Because that squad had a few similarities to the Panthers now, in one sense that there was a small core of players there, mostly around the spine, who had been together for quite a few years, and they're all around that 26, 27, 28 years of age. They had a bit of a premiership success, but they had stuck together. The only difference was the rules of the day around then were around having quicker edge forwards, and the Tigers had tons of those. And so the game was kind of designed for the way they played, and so it was inevitable they were going to make the finals. They should have gone into the finals in 2012, and that didn't happen. And the club's just gone, we'll pull the trigger now. It took them basically 5 to 6 years to get the nuts to sack him. And then he dug his heels in after apparently he made a handshake agreement that he would step down if the Tigers didn't make the finals in 2012.
Yeah.
And then they did, and he's gone, well, I'm not leaving. It's not in writing or some shit to that effect. So they sacked him anyway. And he dug his heels in. He says, I'm not going anywhere until you pay me out. And he wanted fucking $1 million or $2 million or something like that. So the club had to get stopgap measure coaches. It fucked the club for another 2 years. I mean, most coaches, whether they have a happy or unhappy tenure at the club, they gauge their success not just on premierships, but on leaving a club better than when they started there. And this bloke had, to some degree, left them better with their on-field results. But after all the fucking drama he dragged them through after he got sacked, they've been where they are now for a decade. And he has to take a lot of credit for the misery that club is now in. And all the good that he did to the club is completely gone. It's all undone.
I think when he left the club the first time, and he, as you say, left them in not a good place. I mean, they had the lineup that was around Benji Marshall, who's a generational talent, and Robbie Farah and a couple of other decent players that were there. It was abysmal, and to the point where, like I've said before, one of my favourite things to do was to watch Benji Marshall drag the terrible teams he was the leader of, kicking and screaming to wins they had no right to get. It was incredible to watch. And there was, afterwards, you had a team that needed rebuilt. And but at some point it stops. You have to stop blaming like Sheens for that. And at some point it rests on the club. And especially when that rebuilding, over the course of a decade doesn't occur. And then, you look at all of the coaches that have been through that place. Some of them have been really bad. Some of them have been pretty damn good. There's been a couple of guys there that are premiership coaches that have been through there, and none of them have been able to fix it. And I mean, the thing that gets me is that they haven't been in the finals for 11 straight years in a salary cap era, which is almost impossible. Yeah. They were 16th last year. We added a team, and now they're 17th. Like, a brand new team did better than them this year, who had no players in March last year. No NRL players in March last year, and they still managed to put together a better club than the West Tigers.
That's right. They had such a small window to get themselves prepared, and they're still achieving not immensely better, but enough better.
Yeah, Yeah, and that's I think that says everything about the West Tigers. The fact that you look at the Bulldogs and they're having a terrible season. You look at the Dragons, they're having like a catastrophic season. And those two teams have no chance of winning the wooden spoon.
Going on that, can we just go back to last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
The end of last year,
mm-hmm.
the bottom three teams on the ladder.
Yeah.
Tell me which one seems a bit different compared to now.
Okay.
Bottom three teams. West Tigers, last. Second last, Warriors. Third last, Knights.
Well, you know, look, the Knights, you can't look past the Knights either. The Knights have done very well, right?
Well,
but
two of those teams now are in the top 8, and one of them isn't.
Yeah. Well, the Warriors, right? I mean, I think it shows they got rid of a lot of players. They were coming out of a very bad era that they couldn't really control because of having to be in Australia and how messed up it all was for them. But you got to say that the change there is remarkable, and it shows what can happen when you get a guy in there that turns out can coach. You know, he gets the right people. He gets the most out of his playing group. When was the last time you could say that about the West Tigers?
The thing about the Warriors, which is most frustrating for Tigers fans, is the bloke who's coaching there was an assistant coach at the West Tigers.
Yeah.
Right? The Warriors last year were the only team to have worse defence than the West Tigers. Their defence is one of their strong suits this year.
Yeah.
And the Tigers finished 2 wins behind them on the ladder. Just 4 wins last year. They're currently not even at 4 wins this year. Admittedly, the Tigers' attack and defence stats for points per game is better in both areas. That's hardly anything to fucking hang your hat on when you've only won 3 of 24 fucking games.
Yeah, exactly. And look, you can say like the Dolphins come in and without a team, they built a team in the space of let's say 10 months. Let's be really generous and say in 10 months they went from nothing to having an NRL squad that has performed better than the Tigers. Then you can say, well, the Warriors have basically done the same thing, you know?
Yep.
I know that they had a starting point, but they just showed. I mean, the Warriors are shown just because you have bad seasons doesn't mean you can't turn it around really quickly. And there's like the Broncos were another one. They had a terrible season under Seabold, and Walters was able to turn it around in the course of like 18 months. Most teams do that.
Yep.
The West Tigers haven't done it for 10 years straight.
They don't know how to.
And that's because their management is just the worst, one of the worst ever.
I thought the years with Grant Meyer at the club, which was basically the time just after Sheen's left, was the worst time the club went through because there was no leadership or accountability anywhere in the club. And a lot of people would hang shit on Robbie Farah back then. But if you look at it from a Tigers fan's perspective, Robbie Farah was the only one to have the balls to go out and front the media about the shit that was going on at the club. And most of the time he wasn't giving them any information. But he was the only one that showed actual leadership within the club. And that's a fucking concern.
Yeah.
When a player has to burden that shit as well as what's going on the field as well. And then he's been run in front of a fucking bus because of what some dumb fucking old cunt said on the bloody footy show or whatever it was 2 years before or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he's dealing with that crap. And to be honest, most of the Tigers coaches they've had since Sheen's, the majority of them haven't been bad. Potter was very good and he was making some great strides in the club's defence. That crap that went on with the player revolt thing where Gordon Tallis was looking after his mate by taking the job off him. Thanks, Gordon, you fucking genius. That derailed the club so much. In about 4 weeks, they went from being on the fringe of the top 8 to losing 4 games in a row by pretty big margins and dropping right out of the race. So they were getting close to the end of the season there. Taylor was abysmal. And he, in my view, he was only hired with one job, and that was to get Farah out of the squad because he was costing too much. And he was costing too much not because of anything Farah did to the club, but it was what Farah had done for the club to help them stand at the cap in previous years by taking pay cuts. And I believe his last deal suggested that he was going to get a lot of that money repaid back to him, which is why he was being paid $1 million a year or whatever it was, close to that in his last 2 seasons. It's not what his market value was. A lot of people get that confused. It's back pay is what it is, basically. Because when he came back to the club, he wasn't on big money. Not even close. So Taylor was tasked with that job. That's why we saw that drama with Farah being dropped to New South Wales Cup and then eventually pushed out of the club. That's not how you treat a former captain of the club who doesn't want to leave.
But it's not only that. It's the fact that the management at the time, they had given this contract to Farah. And as you say, there was a reason for that. But then they immediately wanted somebody else to try and get them out of that contract.
Yeah.
And they tasked that to the person that was going to be the coach. And look, it was something that Jason Taylor took on board, but he probably shouldn't have had to, but he decided to. And I understand that if you're trying to get your foot in the door as a first grade coach, you'll do anything. And it's just a mess. Like, what a messy, terrible situation to put the coach and the player into if you're the team's management.
Yeah, it's atrocious. Ivan Cleary came in, obviously a good coach. And then for some unknown fucking reason, the club tried to pit him against his own fucking son. Oh, my God.
Yeah, yeah, unbelievable.
Fucking utter morons.
You would think that they would just do the math on that.
Yeah. And then they bring Maguire in, and Maguire is burdened by these long contracts that were being signed for a majority of players on big money. He was burdened with those for the best part of 3 seasons while he was there. And when he finally got his first season out of those and start having a bit of money freed up in the cap, they dump his ass. And they bring in this stupid old prick.
Because Tim Sheen said that he was the guy to coach the club.
Yeah. They bring in this stupid old prick. He's come in and he's decided that the age of 71, I think it was at the time, that he's going to come in after 11 years out of the coaching game in the NRL. And he'll just walk in and not only going to be an NRL coach again full time, he's also going to teach a person who's never coached a game in their life to be an NRL elite level coach.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time dealing with a club that is winning a spoon. That has then manifested into them winning another spoon and having now, not only has he got Benji a club that's got the spoon 2 years in a row, he's also handed him a club that has no halfback at all next year. Their 5'8" that they would have, Adam Dewey, is probably going to miss a big chunk of next year. The best option they've got as a replacement for him has been sent off to Panthers. That's Dane Laurie.
Yep.
They've got next to nobody available to play in the halves next year. Nobody. That's why you see at the moment, Coruscant is playing 60% of his game at first receiver.
Yeah.
There's no one there. And the Tigers attack has been looking good because of it, but, you know, he shouldn't be doing that. It's fucking stupid.
And this is what gets me about Benji Marshall is that he's got a lot of, and I understand Benji Marshall's competitive, right? And I understand that there's nothing more that Benji Marshall would love than to take this Tigers team and turn it around. But he has a lot of people around him at that club that should be doing better by him. And they basically are putting him in one of the worst situations I can think of for a rookie coach to take over. You know, 2-time wooden spoon club that hasn't made the finals. And will it be like 12, 13 years by next season?
So it'll be 12 years this year. Next year will be the 13th.
And as we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, like they're starting to get towards that level that the Penrith Panthers were at when they entered the competition in 1967. They didn't make their first finals until 1985. And that was catastrophically bad for so long. This is a team that has a salary cap in place that then has another $2 million they get on top of that salary cap to help them with other expenses. You know, there is they've got the second biggest junior development base in all of Sydney. There's zero reason for them to be this bad. And yet here we are, and they're doing a long march towards that Panthers terrible run. It's outrageous. And they're going to hand that to Benji Marshall and then dare say that they want him to be the next great coach. There's no way Benji will be able to do that. But the people around Benji Marshall should say to him, mate, if you really want to be a coach and you really want to help this Tigers team, get out of the Tigers right now. Go somewhere else. Go anywhere else. Learn to be a coach under a coach that isn't failing, that isn't winning wooden spoons. Go to Penrith. Just go to Penrith and be at like one of however many assistant coaches they've got and be there for a couple of years. You'll get a job somewhere.
Could have gone to New Zealand for a year under Andrew Webster, who he knows.
Yeah. Could have gone up to the Dolphins under Wayne Bennett, It's
who he also knows.
No one's not. If Benji Marshall calls a club tomorrow and says, I'm interested in being an assistant coach there next year, every single club in the competition would embrace him.
Oh, hell
but
yeah.
it's not. This isn't the job for Benji Marshall to take over, and the people around him should be really bloody ashamed of themselves for not throwing themselves on that grenade for Benji Marshall. And that's the thing about Tim Sheens. He's put Benji in a terrible situation right now, and I can't believe he would do that to him.
The thing for me now is Tim Sheens is the only person that Benji Marshall's had a chance to learn anything from. What exactly has he learnt? Like, how much of the Tim Sheens crap that is currently infested in the team so badly that they can't manage 3 wins from, they can only manage 3 wins from 21 games.
Well,
how much of that shit carries over? And how much is Benji going to be able to change or fix or rectify? Because I can't see how Benji can in any way make any improvement here. He's on a hiding to nothing, and I genuinely fear that he is going to get arseholed within maybe 2 or 3 seasons at best. They'll sack him and they'll get someone else in, and it'll just keep going round and round and round and round.
Mm-hmm.
They should have stuck with Maguire all along.
Yeah.
But now we've got this.
And it's, they're not going to change the culture of the club because it's been there for over 10 years. And the fish rots from its head. It's all the management. It's the board and the CEO. And unfortunately, they can't be voted out by supporters because it's a joint venture. I wonder if the way to do it, if you're a Tigers supporter, is become a member of the Magpies and then vote those board members out and pressure the club that way, because it's basically the Magpies that are in control of the joint venture.
Mate, the way they're running, the way they're performing, they're already the Magpies. So they're getting what they want. They've finally got their NRL team back.
Yeah, and you know what? There's something to be said about that, because they were called the West's Magpies, we'd all be looking at it saying, well, this has been their history for the last, 30, 40 years. This is what you expect out of the Magpies.
They've only had a few blips in their existence, the 30s and the 60s.
Yeah.
That's it. The rest of it, they've been struggling to get into the 8s. They might occasionally make it, but a lot of that time, they've been battling at the bottom of the ladder. And they, for a lot of that period, never needed to. You think back to those first 30, 40 years, they had no competition in all of the western suburbs, and that was still growing out there then. And that included Penrith back then. They had all that whole Penrith area up until 1966.
Yeah, and western suburbs back then was pretty far east. What they called western suburbs too.
Yeah. So it's, and yet still struggled.
Yeah.
And as I said before, with Balmain, very small area, very condensed. It was in the middle of the CBD sort of area for those 80s and 90s, when they were probably their last genuine peak period. And the Tigers have a record. Every decade they will make the finals at least once. Every single decade. But this West Tigers side doesn't have that record. So they're resembling a lot more of West Magpies than they are Balmain Tigers. So, Magpies have got what they wanted. This is what they want. So I hope they're happy.
Yeah.
This
Except
team's
that
a fucking
weirdly, for whatever reason, they completely reject their home base down in Campbelltown.
Well, the Magpies did that for a while.
But I don't. They did, but I don't understand it. There's not many smart decisions that this club makes at all. In fact, I'd struggle to find one.
Well, let's be honest. If it hadn't have been for the Newtown Jets suggesting that they would play at Campbelltown, the Magpies never would have got there. They've gone, oh yeah, Campbelltown, that's an area. How about we take that ground instead? And then, twist the knife in Newtown's back while they go. Fucking Newtown's idea saved the Magpies at their own expense.
Yeah. And you know what? This sounds weird, but if you gave the license to Newtown tomorrow, I bet that they wouldn't be wooden spooners next year.
They would find a way to survive.
Yeah.
Because it's what they've done their whole fucking existence. They've got a bit of a similarity with the Magpies in, I think they've got the same number of premierships, which is 4. But West have a lot more wooden spoons than Newtown.
Yeah. And Newtown, after they did find themselves out the top league, like they did something I think most people didn't expect, and that's that they survived. Yeah. It's been impressive, and you look at what they do on match days now. They've created a niche for themselves that they could build upon. The thing that gets me about the West Tigers at the moment is I don't see where they go from here outside of the club being bought by a private investor and just taken off of the Magpies, and you just move them down into that Macarthur region. Yeah. If you still call them the Tigers, maybe you update the logo, add a little bit of different colours to their logo or something. I'm not sure, but that's the only way forward I really see for the club. I can't see it happening through the Western Suburbs Magpies part of the joint venture. The Balmain side basically doesn't exist anymore.
I say this.
Yeah.
Right. Do everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Base them entirely in Campbelltown.
Mm-hmm.
Call them the Magpies.
Mm-hmm.
And let the new team coming in, if there's a new team in Perth, call them the Perth Tigers, but they are in no way affiliated with Balmain or the West Tigers. But they can have those colours because black and orange, sort of black and yellow, kind of. There's a few similarities with those colours over in the WA.
Yeah, you could change Tigers are kind of. You could change it to black and orange. You could change it, to black and yellow, and still call them the Tigers, and it would work.
Yeah.
Lighten it up a bit. You could do that.
Absolutely. But a Tiger's a very marketable logo, mascot, all that sort of stuff.
Look, there's 2 smart things they've done in their entire history. Number 1, kept the Tigers name because, as you say, it's marketable. And number 2, sign a young Kiwi bloke and get him playing footy up on the Gold Coast for a high school team. That's the 2 smart things they have done in their whole history. Outside of that, it's been a fucking just one big failure after another.
An abject failure. But a series of abject failures, each more abject and more failure-y than the last one.
Yeah.
It's like they sit down, they're mapping out, right, we've now had this massive fuck-up. What can we do to trump that to make the last one not look so bad? Because if people look back and go, oh, that one wasn't so bad in the end, that'll in turn make us not look so bad. Because we just keep reminding them of the bad decisions in the past that now don't look so bad compared to the current one. And then we keep having bigger ones. The ones in the past all look smaller, which would in turn make the current one look smaller than what it currently is. That's the way they're looking at it.
They even managed to do a behind-the-scenes look at the club a couple of years ago that made the club look foolish and made the people running it look like idiots. And I will never forget Michael Maguire, basically begging this team to put in and
do something.
And then they showed the shot of the team, and there's zero coming from the players, like absolutely nothing coming out of the players. And it like that really showed that culture is just part of the club at such a deep level that no matter who you put in there, it's not going to change. They've got Appy Coruscant, who's having his best season of his entire career, coming off of a couple of premierships at Penrith, playing out of his skin. And it doesn't rub off on everyone, you know. Appy Coruscant's out there playing a lone hand. That sort of stuff does not rub off on the rest of the club. You don't just lift everyone up. It doesn't work that way. And, you know, all of these low standards are set by someone. And them low standards have been set by the board. And they've been set by the CEO. And they've been in place for a decade. And the thing that is crazy to me is that, like, after 10 years of not making the finals, you would think that there'd be some sort of bounce, you know?
There was, because they said it's a new era.
Yeah, and you can't just declare stuff. You can't just say stuff and it happens. Like, but we're at the end of this horrible period in the club's history. And what have we got? We got a wooden spoon. They've won 3 games. They're going to have a rookie coach who's a former great that's going to take over, and that never ends well.
No.
It's like, it's as though this should be the start of the bad period, and it's not.
No. The players, as we saw in that documentary, they're so disinterested in anything any coach has to say to them. If it was 12th century England, they wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't get a giggle out them when Ronald the Farter came out and started doing his work on Christmas Day.
I don't know that part of history, Andrew.
You don't know that? Oh, mate.
No.
Roland the Farter, he's the great one, man. So he would get, he was obligated to come in and perform a song for the king. I think it was King Henry II, as the court jester. And he had to sing it using farts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. He's
a what's the term? A medieval flatulist or something like that. Yeah. That's when occupations peaked right there. It's been all fucking downhill since then.
He sounds like he could be the CEO of the Tigers in this era.
Tell you what, if he came along and he just farted at press conferences, he'd actually be producing a lot more content.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be making a lot more people happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd probably actually have a lot more substance to it. And it would probably be a bit more inspirational than whatever it is the current fuckwits are doing.
It amazes me that, like, always beware of someone that's got a special hat. Anybody that has a special hat is weird. Have you ever noticed that? Someone that has, they get around and they're the dude in the flat cap.
It's because they have zero anything, personality, anything. And so they need the hat to do all that heavy lifting for them. Everyone goes, all the attention goes to the hat. Oh, you're wearing a hat. That's an interesting hat. Why are you wearing that hat? The whole conversation is about the fucking hat. It's a distraction from the fact that they've got nothing to offer the conversation outside of the hat.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the hat should be taking over from Chairman Lee because it's doing all the work at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not like you could do worse. At what point do you think the Tigers are? Like how far away do you think they are from hiring Matthew Elliott?
Oh.
Or has that opportunity passed? Have they gone past that window?
I mean, Matthew Elliott's probably getting on a little bit now. If his name come up, you could see where there, because Matthew Elliott, I think, does commentary for the ABC.
He does. Do you think the Tigers are in such a bad place that if Matthew Elliott became coach, he would actually improve them?
He might actually. He might. He wouldn't do worse.
Sorry, I was just banging my head on the table.
It's like, I tell you, I'll put it this way, right? Matthew Elliott wasn't worse than Nathan Brown at the Warriors, right? Like Matthew Elliott was bad, but he was consistently bad, whereas Nathan Brown, like, was not only embarrassing, but like just was dropping bombshells and stuff and just ruining shit around him. At least Matthew Elliott would be consistently bad. But and the other thing is Matthew Elliott has a consistently bad coaching philosophy, so at least that would be in place.
Like, but I think his consistently bad philosophy would be an improvement to the Tigers.
Yeah, at least it would be a philosophy.
It's something to work around.
Yeah. Like, what's the philosophy of the West Tigers right now? They're like, it's just like,
don't be late.
Let's grab anyone we can, no matter what red flags they've got attached to them.
You don't. I mean, we're not even looking at flags. Is he currently signed to a club?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, sign them. If the answer is yes, make them an offer.
Like, I mean, the big recruitments for next year, Jaden Sullivan from the Dragons, who are terrible, and he's not in the side.
Yeah.
And then, like, I don't know if they've finally secured Aiden Caesar, but are you fucking serious? Aiden Caesar?
They're pretty close, apparently.
I was actually watching Josh Schuster play for Manly.
Yeah.
And he is the most West Tiger. Like, him and Matt Moylan are really going to have to fight it out for that 5'8" spot.
There's no reason why you can't have both.
Yeah. Well, that's what Manly are trying. That's what Manly signed Schuster to a big long-term deal to play 5'8" and immediately signed a dude to play 5'8". Fucking geniuses.
Well, the thing is, they did buy the recruitment and retention guy that used to be at the West Tigers. If there's one club out there that's making more intentionally stupid decisions than the Tigers at the moment, it's Manly.
And they just swapped.
It's like they're intentionally trying to help the Tigers out, and I don't know why. Well, like, what's in it for you, Manly?
I don't understand how they managed to swap recruitment people. Okay, here's a question for you. Should the NRL step in? And I don't know how you step in if you're the NRL, because you can't do salary cap stuff. You can't sign players. Do you go to the Magpies and say, you've got 18 months to turn this around?
No. I'm with you. Instead of coming in and say, we're going to give you an ultimatum, they're going to come in and say, we're going to do a review of the club because we, the NRL, have been investing a lot of money in this club, and this is the only club that we can say over the last decade is an abject failure.
Yeah.
And for the benefit of our ratings, our crowds, marketing, everything, we need all our teams to be performing as competitively as possible. And this club is not. So we're going to do a review of the club from the NRL perspective to find out what it is that's wrong, whether it can be fixed, and if it can be fixed, we will make the fix. Take it out of any independent person, take it out of the West Tigers' hands, and let the club know the NRL's in charge. We will sort this shit out. They don't have to fix the club and pour money into it. Just go in and go, right, if we think that the board is not doing their job and they're failing in every aspect that matters to making this club better, the pathway system is not good, all that sort of stuff, and go, right, well, you people involved in all of this process for a period of time, I'm sorry, but you're shit. Fuck off. And the club can then go and have your meetings, right? We'll leave it in your hands. Go have meetings and appoint new people for those roles. You've got the off-season to get it sorted. That's what needs to be done. It'll never happen, but that's the only way you can get it done.
Yeah, I wonder if you could see them come in and say, we're giving you a set time frame. You have to hit these certain KPIs or your club grant beyond what we give you under the salary cap is going to start to be reduced, and give them a financial incentive to turn it around. Because like the West Tigers being this bad, it's costing everyone money. It's costing the Penrith Panthers money. You know, it's costing the Broncos money. Everyone is losing money because this team is so horrible.
Yeah, no one wants to watch the West Tigers play footy.
No one. And it's it can't just keep going on, and it has. It's gone on for 10 years. And
That's right.
like if there's key markets in Sydney that aren't being serviced by this team, and if they're not doing their job, if they're not contributing to the National Rugby League, their place in the National Rugby League has to be looked at and reviewed. And we have to look at if they're the right organisation to have this license. And I can't believe it. I wouldn't have never said this about a club, but I think that we're at that point now for this West Tigers team. And it's not just about on-field stuff. It's about their junior base gets neglected. They're playing at all these home fields all over the place, and we've got Campbelltown who doesn't get enough games. And that whole area down there is just a gold mine, and someone's going to mine it. And I want it to be rugby league mining it, because if it's not rugby league, it will be someone else. There's already an A-League club that's committed down to that area. And, eventually the AFL is going to look at it and say, hey, no one's there. No one's there. We'll base ourselves right near the airport. It's going to be another city.
It won't be AFL it'll be rugby union that goes in there. And that'll be a foothold for rugby union to get back into Sydney in the western suburbs, because it's been basically non-existent out there for the best part of a few decades.
Yeah.
But that will be the revenue back in there.
Yeah, rugby union, they think Parramatta's Western Sydney, and it's not healthy in Parramatta even. So.
I reckon they think Glebe is Western Sydney.
But yeah, it wouldn't shock me, hey? Wouldn't shock me.
Ultimo?
I remember in high school, at an assembly, they had some dudes that played rugby union for the Penrith rugby union team that was in the Sydney competition at the time. And no one gave a fuck. And I used to play footy in high school, and we were watching these guys, and we were like, I bet we could flog these fuckers. So,
Blokey, what's his name? And fella who's what's it? Yeah, know he's real well, guys.
Exactly. But look, I think that it's because I could see where the NRL gets to a point where they're getting towards the next TV deal, right? And they say, we're going to do a strategic plan for the game, which is a review of everything that we've got and what we need going forward. And that review coming out and saying we need a team down in this Campbelltown, Macarthur region, and that the West Tigers are not doing the job, and that's a license that we could move to Western Australia or Adelaide, and we give the Bulldogs that whole Macarthur region if they move from the Olympic Stadium, which I think the Bulldogs would actually do. If you gave them that area, they'd have the second biggest area in Sydney by quite some way with their own area as well. And then
absolutely, because they've got a pretty small juniors area as well. So they would definitely take it. The only problem they'd have is they'd want to have a set permanent home, and they should have a genuine newish stadium as their home ground. That's what I was saying. I remember saying many podcasts ago that they should be trying to put a big stadium out near Liverpool somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where they were going to build that Oasis project, which fell apart for many different reasons, and rightfully so. But so they were open to that like less than 20 years ago. And so to look at that and know that the Bulldogs were open to it then, it would make the Sydney Rugby League set up less messy. It would make a lot of sense for the Bulldogs to go down and take over that area. There'd be a lot right with that. And I've said, and moving a little bit away from the West Tigers a little bit, I think the next team is going to be PNG, and it's because there's many tens of millions of dollars backing that bid now from a lot of mining companies. But on top, more importantly, the Australian government, the PNG government, and the United States government have backed that bid, and they're doing it in an effort to keep the Papua New Guinean government on side with those nations, rather than having other nations come in and offer lots of money and lots of international exposure. And so I think that I wouldn't be shocked if the PNG expansion bid gets announced before the end of the year. Like that, it's that far along, I believe.
But it would also make sense. I mean, you think back to, let's have a look at, say, 1993-94,
Mm-hmm.
and Australia was clearly the most dominant country internationally, but specifically in the Pacific. Like, I remember, the few times we played against Fiji, so we dealt them 80-odd nil, played against PNG and smashed them. We were even putting up pretty big scores against New Zealand occasionally in the early 90s. Bring the Warriors in and just open up a pathway for all those Pacific Islands players to get into the NRL. They got better. They all got improved. It wasn't immediate, but not only was it just a gradual build, it was also, it built the game and made it stronger throughout the whole nation and through all those generations as well. To the point where now it's hard to argue that 7 of the top 8 test teams in the world are in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. It was a revolution.
Yeah. And so getting PNG in there, it'd be like the next big step. Because imagine it could only be about, if PNG comes in, it could be 10 years. And they'll be doing the same shit Samoa did in the last World Cup.
Yeah. And look, they're already a very good international nation. They've got a team that's playing in the Queensland Cup. We've seen all of the players that they've produced that are top of the line players, going back to even someone like a David Wesley, Yep. So, I mean, the talent is there. My personal feeling is what they will do is they will give the license to PNG, that they'll play their home games in PNG, but during the week they'll be based in Cairns. And I think that they'll do that for operational purposes. I think they'll do that because it'll be easier to attract talent to the club that way. I think they'll probably play a game or two in Cairns. It might be away games technically that other teams play in Cairns, but I think that because obviously you want to play as many games in PNG. And you think about how, like, from the PNG government's point of view and all of these mining companies that are up their point of view, how many times is PNG in your living room in a week, in a month, in a year through your TV? It might be once or twice if you're lucky. What if it was every weekend?
Mm-hmm.
And that's giant exposure for that country. It's not a country like ours. It is a very unique country. It's actually the country that has, if you go by a percentage of all of the languages in the world, PNG has like 60% of all of the known languages in the world because of all of their different dialects. There are places that are some of the most remote places on planet Earth are in PNG. But damn it, they play rugby league. It's the national sport there. They're very good at it. And we've talked about their players. The players they're not human beings. They're made out of teak. They're strong. They're hard as fuck. They play at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They can play the game skillfully. They can play it smart, and they can play it tougher than anyone else, just depending on what they need to do. They've already beaten Great Britain in PNG. So I think that they would come in. They wouldn't be wooden spooners. I think they'd come in and be really bloody good straight away. I don't think they'd make the finals, but I think that they do as well, if not better than the Dolphins. And everything's lining up behind PNG right now. And I think that we're going to see PNG get announced really soon. And it might be a case of they say PNG's coming in say 2025, and then in 2027 it is going to be Perth. So I think that they'll do something like that.
I'd imagine that there'd be 3 teams they want to bring in because they'd want to have an even number.
Yeah.
And 3 teams means you can have a top 10. Not that I condone that, but that's what they do.
Yeah.
So PNG, Perth, where would the third expansion team be?
Adelaide is pretty straightforward, but it's got to be New Zealand. It has to be.
I'm with you on that. I think it's got to be New Zealand because then you can have a game in New Zealand every week.
Mm-hmm.
And that time zone is an absolute win.
Yeah.
Absolute win.
And you look at the Warriors crowds right now. gigantic and going off their heads for 80 minutes, right? And I think you could start another New Zealand team for next season and it would be pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. Warriors have got one of the top 4 average home crowds for the year.
Yeah.
What have we got here so far? Brisbane's obviously top with 32,000. The Dolphins with 23. The Roosters, we'll go with the official figures for now.
Yeah.
22,903. The Warriors 22,027.
And I tell you what, if they get a home final,
that place will be fucking romping.
Yeah, they haven't got a stadium big enough.
No.
You could start a team there for next season, and I think they'd be fine. They wouldn't go worse than the fucking West Tigers.
No, that's right. They wouldn't. Maybe there should be a team, make the West Tigers more West. Like put them at Bathurst.
Push them all the way.
Make them even Dubbo. Dubbo Tigers.
Dubbo Tigers. I reckon push them all the way to Perth.
Yeah. I don't know. The way they're playing at the moment, I'd be happy if you just pushed them somewhere out near Cuba Petey. Stick them in one of those houses under the ground and shut the door. Throw away the key.
Put them somewhere no one knows what's going on and no one cares. Tamworth. It's weird that we've got this competition where we can say PNG probably going to be in next, but we have to have a team in Perth and we have to have a team in Auckland, and they're going to be successful and they tick all of these boxes and stuff. And then you look at the West Tigers and you're like, what are we doing with this license?
Yeah.
Because it's $12 million a year being burnt on a team that is doing nothing.
And haven't even been in the hunt for years.
No.
You know, we used to joke all the time about the Tigers being 9th. How that was a joke. Do you know how many times they've actually been 9th since they last made the finals in 2010?
2010. I'm going to say 4 times.
3. You were saying 3.
I was going to say 3. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and
2016, 2018, 2019. So, Jason Taylor's second year there. And then Ivan Cleary's first year. His first year was 2017 when he took over from Taylor when that was an absolute mess. And he lost the so-called Big Four. No, he's one and only real full season there. He improved their defence immensely. That was one of their best defensive years ever. And they finished with 12 wins and 12 losses, their best record since they made the finals. And then the last one was 2019, the following year with Michael Maguire as coach. And it's been 10th, 15th, 13th, 15th, 14th, 11th, 13th, 16th, and 17th, around that.
It's terrible.
I mean,
so bad.
Just swimming around in the bottom 6 or 7 the whole time, basically.
So it's like, so they haven't been in the finals for 11 straight years, right?
12 straight years.
12 straight years? Okay. 12 straight years. And we said Penrith's was, 18. So they've got 6 more years to get there. They're not making the finals next year.
Oh, God, no.
So, it's close.
I'd be confident saying they're not making the finals for as long as David Nofaluma is contracted to the club.
He's got another 3 years left, hasn't he?
3 or 4. Once he's gone, there's a chance. There's a chance. And that's my hot take. You can probably hold me to that one. I reckon I'll be pretty solid on that one. Any markets on that?
I know, right? It's like, and we were looking at the longest tenured players not long ago. It's like Norfoluma, Clemmer. Now it's Appy as well, Appy Coruscant. It's insane. It's so insane.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing intelligent about what the club's doing.
No.
And there's no plan, no structure, no focus, no leadership. They've got nothing.
and no accountability. Like
Zero.
no one is at the end of this season like looking and saying, well, if you don't make it to the finals this year, CEO is out.
Yeah.
That no one in the management's under any obligation to succeed.
None at all. They've only had 3 seasons in their entire history where they've won more games than they've lost.
That's almost impossible in a salary cap era.
That's in 23 years. Only 3 of them they had more wins than losses.
That really is very Western Suburbs Magpies like, isn't it?
It really is.
Wow.
It really is. So yeah, they suck.
Yeah,
they suck.
I can't imagine what it's like. I know you're a supporter of the club. I just can't imagine it.
Well, you get numb to it after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. You start watching other sport.
Yeah.
And other teams playing. Just so you stay calm.
Yeah.
Because you also get to the point now where up until probably last year, watching the Tigers play was frustrating.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, they were still like they weren't terribly off the pace. This is like when Michael Maguire was still coach. They weren't horribly off the pace. Like they were no chance of making the finals. Don't get me wrong. But they weren't a team that looked like they were going to get absolutely fucked every bloody time they ran out onto the field. And you had somewhat of a semblance of hope going, you know what, we might be able to jag one here. Because you could see there was a bit of a structure in play of what they were doing with Maguire as coach. If we play with this game, this game plan just might work for us tonight. We might just get this done and we might be competitive. And there's a little bit of optimism there. Not stupid optimism, just enough that you weren't going to get embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you can, if that's the starting point as part of your rebuild, that's okay. As part of your rebuild. It wasn't part of the rebuild though. It was just coasting.
Yeah.
And so it was never good enough. But now, watch them play, you run out, there's no structure. There's just no semblance of plan or anything. It's just like, oh, okay, we've got the ball now. Oh, we dropped it. Oh, well, let's just tackle now.
And they break so easily.
Yeah.
Like you don't even have to apply pressure to them. They're just, they're going to break.
They slide so slow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few random players on the defensive line that do random things, which you cannot have a functioning defense work with that going on. So Nofalum is the worst because he makes horrible decisions and he makes them too early or way too late. And what he should be doing is the same thing every time. Doesn't matter how consistent he does it or if he gets beat by a winger a few times and he lets in a few tries. But if he's doing the same thing every time, you can change your defensive structure to support him. And the thing about wingers is they've got an imaginary defender on their outside. It's called the sideline. Yeah?
Yeah.
So you use it, but he doesn't because he comes in so far. He takes the sideline away from being an asset.
Yeah.
And most wingers are designed so that their strong shoulder that they tackle with is on the, it's on the inside. So you got the sideline doing all the hard work on your weak side. Your beauty, it's just a line on the ground doing all my hard work over there. They've got to run towards my strong shoulder. It's a fucking win. And he somehow finds a way to make it a loss.
Yeah.
It fucking gets me every time. I just don't know how he manages it. It's staggering. And yet he has fans.
Yeah, I don't get that. It's weird when you have a poor club and people get behind someone that you watch week in, week out, and you're like, why are you acting like we should be building around this guy? Like the fact that this guy is someone that is not one of our worst players is why we're so bad. Because in any other team, he's the worst player.
Yeah. It's Bateman's another one. He doesn't do a lot. He doesn't do a lot horribly wrong, but
I seriously think he makes so many fuck ups in a game. I really do. How many times has he kicked the ball this year?
He does that a lot. But the thing is, as far as the basics are concerned, especially being in the defensive line, stuff like that, and running the right lines and stuff, he doesn't do a huge amount wrong. But the problem we have with him, he's being paid a lot of money, and he barely does much that's exceptionally good. He's doing the same stuff that you can get a 19-year-old to come in and do on minimum salary.
And they brought him in especially to do that.
There's you could get Schuster to come over, and he'd do exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
and you could get some guy who's, playing in SG ball to come in at the age of 17, and he'd do exactly the same thing. He's not doing anything that's fucking unique that deserves the money that he's been getting, or the bloody accolades that he seems to get for whatever the hell it is he thinks he's doing.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Commentators love talking about him, and I watch him, and I'm like, this guy's not a first grader.
He was vastly better when he was at Canberra, and that's not to say that he was brilliant there, but he was vastly better at Canberra than what he is here.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
He's atrocious. I had high hopes for Clemmer. He hasn't been atrocious, but he hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire either. He's just been he's been better than Taumalolo, but it's not exactly much of a fucking measuring stick, is it?
Taumalolo?
No, not Taumalolo. What was that guy with Tarmow?
Oh, Tarmow. I was going to say.
What the hell was he doing there?
Yeah, but, you're right. You're right. Like if you found out Clemmer was running around for fucking Blacktown for the last 2 years, it wouldn't shock you, because that's the sort of level he's played at. Like, there's a reason the Newcastle Knights wanted to get rid of him.
Yeah.
The fucking Newcastle Knights.
Yeah. Papa Lee has a lot of potential, but he's just been parked too wide. And
you can see him in the last few weeks, because he tries hard.
He does.
But you can see that it's going to get to you eventually, where you're busting your ass and you're running lines and shit and nothing's coming of it. And eventually it's going to drag you back.
For too long, though, at the start of the year, they were parking him so fucking wide. He was on the bloody the Bateman corridor. He was out that wide on the other side of the field. And you're like, why have you got him out there for? He runs fucking great lines, and he's got great footwork at the line. Bring him in closer to the edge.
Yeah.
And no, he's so wide. Coruscant moving out from being a dummy half all the time has brought Papali'i back into the play, and that's why he's looked a lot better these last few weeks. Coruscant's used him really well. But yeah, there's a lot of young guys there, which Sheens will point to and say, look at all these young guys that got in there, and going, yeah, name a few that look like they're going to be future NRL players.
Well, it's like at the fullback, the young fullback Buller. He's okay so far,
He's not done too much bad for a kid in his rookie year.
Yeah, and you've got to be careful that that's the start, that's the point you want him to be at, that he's not making mistakes, and he's doing that, he's fine. But you don't know if he's going to turn into anything yet. Like it's not like a Reece Walsh who, remember his first game of first grade, you were like, oh yeah, he's got it, he's fine, he'll be fine.
This kid's fine, yeah.
Yeah. They've got the second biggest junior base in Sydney. We should be talking about half a dozen of them.
Yeah.
And we're not.
No, because most of them are coming from that junior base.
Yeah.
What have they got there? Let's say there's Asu Kepawawa from Auckland, Tommy Talau, Utikamanu from over in New Zealand, Ruatapu Natakawa. He hasn't played a game yet, but he's from Campbelltown.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have played last year once or twice. Stafford Towers from Auckland and played at Newcastle. Sean Bloor from Penrith.
Penrith, yeah, he's a Penrith junior.
Yeah. Charlie Staines from Forbes. Yeah. I guess that's West Sydney. Jake Simpkin from Toowoomba. Tukey Simpkins from Rotorua. He hasn't played this year. I think he played a few games last year, and he went to the Cowboys for a year or two as well. Fanua Pole from Wellington. They're not bringing too many through the junior ranks in Sydney.
No.
So, and I know Tim Sheen's, look, I've not read the press conference or seen anything he spoke about, but he loves going on about how much he does for the local juniors and all sorts of stuff. So I dare say he probably banged on about how great the work is he's been putting in for the juniors pathways and stuff like that. And you're going, where are they?
Yeah. It's, in a junior system like that, it should be at not quite the level Penrith is at, but that sort of thing where if you start picking juniors out of it, you're going to hit some, stars just because there's that many of them.
Mm.
And it's not happening.
Well, they've only used 28 players this year, the Tigers, which is, most clubs are using at least 30. 30 to 35 is that's sort of the area where most clubs sit. That's pretty much accounting for injuries, mid-season transfers, that sort of stuff. So 28 players the Tigers have used this year. And two of them, I think, one of them changed clubs. That was Alpha Hengawi. Malmolo retired or changed clubs at the start of the year. Can't remember. He hasn't played this year.
Who?
Malmolo.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where did he go?
Did he retire? I think he retired.
Okay.
No, he's playing for Burleigh in the Queensland Cup.
All right. That's a strange one because I remember when they got him and it was like, why are they chasing a winger? Like
they do that.
It's so weird.
They do that. So yeah, they've got. To be honest, that they need to clean out their upper management. I mean, I said this before. Like years before, and I said this when they decided to give past coaches the sack. They said before they appoint any new coaches, get rid of the board because the people who just sacked this guy were the ones who hired him only a short time ago.
Yeah.
If they are now saying he's the worst coach this club could have and we should get someone else, then that shows you just how good they are at their job if they've gone and hired the wrong person to start with. And then it took them 3 years to decide that was the wrong idea. Like, everything about that is horrible. And they're the same people who hired the previous coaches and sacked them as well. So they obviously don't know what they're doing. So why get them to decide who the next coach should be? They shouldn't be doing it. So sack those people before you hire the next coach.
And this is where Benji Marshall's in an unwinnable position because what the board and the CEO will do is they'll say, we didn't pick Benji Marshall. That was Tim Sheen's.
Mm-hmm. And
so he's going to be super, super sackable. And he'll be the relief valve on all of them keeping their jobs, If they're in this position next year, I wouldn't be shocked if Benji's sacked.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually even be surprised if he walked.
I think the only reason he wouldn't is because of that competitive thing. And I he obviously loves the West Tigers because if he didn't, he wouldn't be there, right?
That's right.
But I think that the thing that makes these people so competitive is that they all think that they can do the job. And he might technically be the greatest coach in the world. I think if you put Wayne Bennett there, he wouldn't be able to do anything with this club.
Well, no. I mean, we saw when Bennett went to Newcastle how that turned out. I think the problem Benji's going to have, and I'm not comparing them as players, but the problem Benji's going to have as a coach is going to be very similar to that Wally Lewis had as a coach.
Mate, that's exactly what I line him up with, eh?
And it's going to be along the lines of when they were both playing, if their team was going shit, they knew that they could do something that no one else could that would get their team back in the game. But when they're a coach, they're fucking helpless.
Yeah.
Like they know if they're sitting in their head going, if I was on the field, I'd do this because they knew it would work and they could get it done. But they can't get that through to the heads of someone else because no one else has the freakish ability that these once in a generation players had.
And that's why, yeah.
As I said, I'm not comparing them as players, but just comparing that mindset and the freakish nature that they have.
Yeah, and you can't teach that.
No.
Like, if you could teach that, there'd be dozens of those players running around. And
if you could teach that, Andrew Johns would be the State of Origin coach and he'd have not lost a single fucking Origin game.
Exactly.
But he's trash.
You know, you think of all of the great players that had that ability to take over a game single-handedly, and there's not many of them. Like, and it's take over a game single-handedly against the best of the best of the best. You know, stand head and shoulders above everyone. You know, Darren Lockyer would be the greatest coach in history.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason Brad Fittler's not a good coach. And he was one of those players, one of the few of those players. Laurie Daly's another one, you know?
Yep, Peter Sterling.
Even
Ricky Stewart has struggled with it.
Yeah.
The big success Stewart had as a coach was when he had Phil Gould helping him out at the Roosters.
Yeah. And they were like coming off of the back of, and I forget his name. He was the Roosters coach after Phil Gould, and Phil Gould didn't like him.
Was it Mark Murray?
No. It was he ended up coaching the women's team, and he passed away about 8 years ago. Oh, I can see his face.
Yeah,
Murray.
That's the same. Was it Mark Murray?
Mark Murray? Graham Murray?
Graham Murray.
Graham Murray, is it?
I think it was.
I think I'm thinking Graham Murray, yeah, because they were good under Graham Murray, and then they sacked him, and the next guy in was Stewart, and he won in his first season.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit like the same thing happened with Michael Hagan.
That's right, yeah.
Come in after Warren Ryan, and all the Newcastle players didn't like Warren Ryan because he was this like coach from a completely different era. Didn't give a fuck about any of these guys, right? Worked their asses off, told them to forget about throwing the ball around. It's about defence. And then he left, and the next year they won, and a lot of that work was because of what the Wok had done with them. And we saw that Michael Hagan wasn't a good coach. Like, it just, that panned out over time. So, yeah.
Someone should have recorded just, you know, one full season of Wok's dressing room rants at halftime and full time. Just record them, and then at halftime and full time for all West Tigers games next year, just have a cardboard cutout of him there.
And just play.
And just press play.
Well, can you imagine what it was like for him to coach the fucking Johns brothers? Like,
there's a reason why they split up not long after that.
Yeah.
He just said, there's more to the game than scoring fucking points. Like, you got to stop them coming in as well. Because I remember he said this same thing, like when he went to the Bulldogs as coach in the early 80s.
Yeah.
He said they were known as the entertainers, but for every try they scored, for every point they scored, they conceded almost 1 point. So when they got to the end of the year on the ladder, they might have had 6, 7, 8 wins more than losses, but their points difference was so small, it meant like absolutely nothing. Like, you're letting in tries all the time. You've got to get your defence better. Yeah. And he's a large reason around that iconic Bulldogs defence that happened in the 80s where no one could score points against them.
Yeah.
And they got into grand finals on the base of that defence.
That's why when players say they love a coach and they're not in a good team, I don't care, because sometimes you need someone to come in and tell you what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And you're going to and I understand why you hate it. You know, if you're an attacking player and you've got this, especially with, say, Warren Ryan, who's just like, he's not a people person, you know, like most coaches. And he's like saying, like, all your attack is great, but it doesn't matter for shit because you can't defend. And if you feel as though you're a star player who's, you know, performing and stuff, because you're competitive, you're like, fuck you, you know, and you don't like it. But sometimes you've got to hear that stuff you don't want to hear.
That's right. Look, I just think the Tigers have got to be in a spot now where, seriously, they've got to start trying to 2 wrongs to make a right. I'm not talking about the ball because they've already got 2 wrongs there and that's not making it right. I'm talking about on the field. So maybe they need to bring in 2 coaches.
New South Wales Rugby League style.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking Brian Smith, Nathan Brown.
Oh, my God. Just Just drop a atomic bomb on the club and tear it apart.
Between the two of them, they'd clean everything out. They'd turn everyone against everybody there, and no one will want to be involved with that club anymore. And so when they leave, there'll be not a single fucking human there other than the lady at the front office answering phones.
Nothing's left. I think that's pretty rough on Brian Smith. I think he's all right.
No, he's all right, but he knows how to do a clean out and of the right people.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he knows
Nathan
how
Brown just cleans the shit out. He's
That's
just
right.
like,
yeah,
let's get rid of everything.
So you get Brian Smith in first. He cleans out the people who you know are wrong and they don't need to be there because he knows how to get that shit sorted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Nathan Brown in there to just clean everything out. He's basically bleach.
He's bleach. Nathan Brown is bleach.
Come in, just bleach the place.
It's funny.
And Brian Smith goes, well, fuck you. And Nathan Brown goes, well, fuck you. And then they have a slapping contest and then they both leave. And they go, right.
I'm just trying to think who would...
It's day one. It's January 1, the year 2000. How would this team look now?
Man, I'm serious. I think that they just need to be bought by someone. What if Gina Reinhart just buys them and moves them to Perth?
She wouldn't, though.
Yeah, I don't think she's interested in rugby league. I know she likes sport, but not rugby. Well, she's not. It's like I've never heard about her spending money in rugby league anyway.
Or spending money.
I've heard her spend. Well, remember she was back in the women's netball team, and then the women's netball team started blowing up about her, and I don't have any idea why, but so she just withdrew her money.
I think it was something to do with her business interests and how they weren't really good for the environment or some shit.
Okay, so while they were all fucking flying around the world and using mobile phones with the same shit that's dug out the ground, and so she just took her money out, and she's actually thinking about financially backing the Commonwealth Games, to like basically underfunding it.
Do you reckon, is that a PR thing or is that something she genuinely thinks she's going to make money out of?
I don't think she's looking to make money. I think that she's
trying to do some good PR for herself.
Keep in mind, there'll be tax reasons, which is fair. That's fine. But keep in mind, she is so rich that if she lost $100 million on the Commonwealth Games, she probably wouldn't feel it.
Oh, of course not. It's not, and this is not about her whether she'd be able to afford it or not. Of course she can. No. Yeah. But she'd be doing it for a reason to do with her own interests somewhere.
You think so?
So probably to get government funding or to get, as you said, a tax break or something like that.
Well, yeah, grease wheels.
Or hide some shit somewhere. But there's no way that any games would allow themselves to be funded entirely by a mining magnate. These global game things now, they're a bit too woke.
You reckon?
But, yeah, they won't go for that.
We had a fucking men's soccer World Cup played in like sand.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but that sand didn't have blood on it. It had dead bodies under it, but it didn't have blood on it. So that's different. It's not as brutal.
What about the fucking Sochi Olympics? They had a fucking Winter Olympics games in a seaside resort that was fucking tropical. Like, I think that if you back them for money, they'll do whatever like we have a Formula One race in fucking Bahrain.
Formula One's a bit different because they are quite corrupt.
Oh, that's alleged. Jesus Christ, Andrew. Fuck.
They're not taking races to Azerbaijan while they're having war with the Armenians. That was fine, but when the Russians started having a war with the Ukrainians, we better not go there. Going, fucking pick your wars, eh?
We're fucking rugby league people. We can't even get a World Cup played in France.
That's right. Why doesn't Gina Reinhart fund the fucking Rugby League World Cup?
Yeah. Gina, can you just look at rugby league for a second? It's pretty good, man.
Fuck the Commonwealth Games. Australia wins all the medals. You know the answer, okay? Let's just go to the Rugby League World Cup.
I mean, fucking...
What's the money into that?
Dally Cherry Evans is basically Hayley Lewis.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Comes from Queensland. They've got arms. I mean, they're basically twins at this rate.
So, yeah. That's how sports funded everyone.
See? We're educational.
So Gina Reinhart, she buys the Tigers, moves them to Perth, changes the colours a little bit so they're more like light gold, yellowish sort of colour.
Mm.
And we put a PNG team in. We moved the Bulldogs down to Liverpool. Another New Zealand team. Boom.
Parramatta takes over the Balmain area.
Yeah.
Penrith takes over part of the Magpies area if the Bulldogs don't want it. Just because, why not?
Yeah, why not? I think that the Bulldogs would be fine with it, though. I think
they should be.
Yeah. Look, I've said on the podcast before, I think that there's a place for realignment of all of the junior development areas in Sydney.
Absolutely.
To change as Sydney has changed. So
I was just going to say one other thing too is once that dissolving of the West Tigers has completed.
Yes.
We then go back to the history record books and say Balmain officially died in 1999.
Yes.
They had no involvement whatsoever with any team after that point in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that
they even changed the West Tigers name to the West's Magpies.
Yeah.
So the name is a little bit different, but the legacy can continue, and no one would know any different.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't change anything, would it?
No. People will be absolutely amazed. Like, how did this team go from being absolutely fucking flogged every week in 1998, 1999 to winning a premiership 6 years later and then doing nothing for another 20 years? And then dissolving. Like, that's perfect. I mean, that is peak Magpies behaviour right there.
I don't think there'd be anything in the rugby league record books that kind of stands out. Like maybe North Sydney, looking at North Sydney and being like, how was this club pretty good for so long, but they only won 2 titles in the 20s? How's that work?
And back to back. Like they didn't have a period of great success where they stretched them out. No, let's just do it. Bam, there it is there.
Bam. Yeah, and then even in the last couple of years, they were good until 3 years out and then just died immediately.
Yeah, they fell off a cliff because, as we've said, the rain.
Rained in Gosford. Tonight, we've seen the Sydney Roosters have beaten the Parramatta Eels. That's the Eels season pretty much over.
Ooh.
So what was the score? It was 34 points to 12.
Jesus Christ, they run on with it.
Yeah, to the Sydney Roosters over the Eels. So the Eels are done. We kind of knew that, though. Warriors beat the Seagulls 29 points to 22. Interesting game. It was a bit scrappy at times, but it was entertaining. You know, one of those sorts of games.
Yep. That'd have been Manly done as well then.
Yeah, that's for sure. Seabold was blowing up. There was a point where the game was tied at 22-all. And Daly Cherry Evans was going for a field goal. It was charged down by the Warriors. And it went back to a Seagulls player who went to grab the ball, but it had bounced, like it had been charged down and bounced off the ground. He went up to catch the ball, and Charles Nickel Clogstad sort of took his legs from under him, and he landed on his back. But as the Seagulls player landed on his back, he let go of the ball. The Seagulls were blowing up saying that was a dangerous tackle. It wasn't. He wasn't in any danger. He just had the wind knocked out of him. And it wasn't a penalty because there was nothing illegal in the tackle, and so it was turnover. So Anthony Seabold blew up about that because, of course, their whole season was on the line for that one decision. It wasn't that they sucked all year.
There was 11 other losses, but, let's just whinge about this one.
Details. So,
oh man, well, we're starting to get the finals picture starting to get a little bit clearer, and I take it too. Parramatta and Manly both losing has helped keep the Cowboys' dream alive.
Yeah, a lot relies on how the Rabbitohs do.
The Rabbitohs have got the Knights.
Okay, so that's a huge game, that one.
It is, but that also means too that the Cowboys are still going to be just. Either if the Rabbitohs lose, then the Cowboys will still equal them on points, but behind a lot on points difference, or they'll be 1 point behind the Knights.
Mm-hmm.
The only other concern is the Roosters next week? Yeah, they'll have the Tigers? Yeah. So there's a gimme. And the Roosters their points difference is minus 62. Cowboys is 12. So if the Roosters win by 74 next week against the Tigers, those two sides would be Cowboys and Roosters will have parity for points difference.
Isn't it weird that like you kind of have to do the math on that one and be like, ooh, they could get that really close.
So I'll just say it was 74. Now, people might think that I'm being a bit facetious there. But no, let's have a look at the last time these two sides played. Oh, what was that? Roosters won 72-6.
Oh, man.
Okay. Let's just go through a few recent Roosters victories over the Tigers, shall we?
Okay.
I'll just read them all out from, say, 2012. 42-28, 44-20, 56-14, 30-6, 48-4, 36-4, 33-8, 32-18, 40-18, 22-18. Oh, the Tigers had a win, 10-8.
Nice.
Then we're at 2018. Roosters 16-14, close game. And then 2019, 42-12, 24-16, 38-16, 40-6, 72-6. So the last two games, the Roosters have won 112-12.
Man, that's crazy.
Basically, the Tigers are the Roosters' bitch.
That's going to be interesting. It's those last few teams. It is going to be such a cool race between them over the last few weeks because, like, some of them play one another. Like the Roosters play the Rabbitohs in the last round.
Yeah,
that's going to be so cool. If that's for a place in the finals, man.
Yeah, there's some interesting games coming up for the rest of this week and into next week as well. I think next week the Sharks have got the Knights.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty interesting game as well.
That's a good one. Yep.
Because the Sharks and the Knights, their points difference isn't too much different. The Knights, though, have got that unique differentiator, and that is they've got a draw against their name, so they're not going to be tied on points with anyone. But the Raiders are still going to be shitting themselves quite a bit because their points difference is fucking atrocious.
Yeah, the Raiders...
To the point, even though the Roosters are minus 62, if the Roosters get to the same competition points as the Roosters will jump them.
Yeah.
So the Raiders can still drop all the way down to 10th.
The Raiders are probably the one team in the top 8 that you could look at and say that they're just in dreadful form. Probably then after that, it's the Cowboys just don't look like a finals team. But we'll see. They'll all fight it out, you know. I think that the Broncos, Panthers, and Warriors, weirdly enough, are the teams to beat right now.
Yeah, they've bolted ahead.
And the thing that when I was watching the Warriors and Manly, and I'm watching these two teams, and even the Sharks game, I was like, this is good, and they've done well, but this is a different beast than what Penrith is. Like, you can't just score points like this in a Panthers game. You can't just outscore the other team like you're doing in this one, sort of thing, you know. Yeah. So it's going to make for a really cool final series, like, because something dramatic is going to happen either way.
I've got a feeling
Panthers are going to put on a fucking cricket score on the Titans this week.
You reckon?
And then they might just go, let's just rest a few players against Parramatta. Not all of them. A few against Parramatta. And then a few different ones the week after that, so that all their top 17 players have all had at least a 1 week break over those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And a lot of their fringe players have also got a bit of game time over those 2 weeks. Coming to the finals, everyone's going. Everyone's had a little bit of a break, but no one's out of form. No one's had too long out. And their backup players have all had a bit of game time as well. So everyone's going. And then win the first week, everyone gets a week off. Then they're all bloody fit and firing for that third week of finals. I think the Panthers are absolutely perfectly placed to win another title here. I can't see who's going to challenge them.
It's crazy. It's just crazy. I I can't believe it.
There's a bunch of teams there they've got good attack, which could threaten the Panthers. But what they don't have is a defence that can stop the Panthers. That's the thing. And no team is close to Penrith defensively. Not even close. It's
just completely different, isn't it? It's really weird.
The next best team to the Panthers defensively is probably going to be the Broncos, and they've conceded about 120 points more.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
The thing that gets me about Penrith is they showed through Origin, and I know it's not the finals, but take Cleary out of the team and they can still do some shit. They can still beat you in a game. I think weirdly that probably the only player they haven't got some sort of replacement for is Dylan Edwards, just because he's such a unique sort of player. But everyone else they can kind of do something with and work around it. And because their system is they've got so much depth and it's so defensively oriented that they can still grind you to dust with their defence.
Just for shits and giggles, man.
Yeah.
Not even shits and giggles, man. I'd like to see one game where Brian Tuo is at fullback. Not because I think he'd be good at it. Not because he doesn't have a good passing game. I just want to see his kick returns.
He'll run
That's it.
500 metres.
Just fucking destroy him. That's all I want to see. And he gets to do a ton of them. Just boom, 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 boom.
You're crazy.
Yeah, and he won't need to pass. He's just going to be rolling through humans.
That game that they had recently against the Sharks felt a little bit like it felt like a bit of an exhibition where they ground the Sharks to dust.
Yeah.
And there was nothing the Sharks could do, like absolutely nothing. And it was like, it was kind of amazing to see.
But so that game against the Sharks, I think is the way Penrith will play against most of the teams in the top 5.
Yeah.
Because it would work very similar with all of them. And that is, I think, with the Broncos, the Warriors, less so the Storm, but still possible there, is those teams, the Broncos, Warriors, Sharks, their attack still seems like it's still not quite where it needs to be, and their defense obviously isn't up as good as what their attack is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can pressure them and make them panic in attack, it basically turns their attack off because they stop focusing on what works and they start thinking, fuck, we've got to score points this set. And they start panicking and they start trying to chase points all the time, even though they might only be down by 6 or 8 points on the ladder. On the clock. So they start panicking, which just plays right into Penrith's hands because the one thing Penrith does better than anyone else is they remain composed. And as soon as they make a team panic, they have full control and they then start taking over the game. And they don't do it quickly. They just slowly build it. So we saw in that game against the Sharks, it was pretty evenly matched up around half time. And then after they came out in the second half, Penrith came out and they just went, okay, we're just going to give third gear a try. The Sharks are gone, what the fuck do we do? Quick, throw it around some more, kick to the corner, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. They're just doing, they're throwing fucking sinks and shit like that all at Penrith. Penrith's going, none of this shit's going to, what are you doing? Have you not watched tape against us and how to figure out how to get through us? Because you're doing all the wrong things here at the moment. We stop all of this shit. The chaos, they stop.
Yeah.
The only way to get through Penrith is through persistence and very well run line running plays. And they have to be targeting specific people, and you've got to try and get people one-on-one. Because Penrith always defend in pairs. Everywhere they go, it's pairs. So they don't slide as a full line. They slide in pairs wherever the ball is. So if the change of play goes the other way, bam, there's already a defender standing there waiting. People are always on their toes. No one's standing still, but they're moving at different paces, and a lot of it's just pairs everywhere. So there's always 2 defenders going up to make a tackle everywhere. They're fucking hard to get through because of that. It's a brilliant system, but it can be exploited. But teams too often will get panicked because Penrith's defence comes up and they fucking shut everything down and they make you panic, and then they put the clock against you, and all of a sudden you're going, fuck, we're down by 8 and there's only 15 minutes to go. We haven't been able to score any points for 20 minutes. And so that 8-point margin feels like 20.
And they're so patient. They're patient on a level that is kind of unnatural, because it's not just a thing of like, as a team we want to be patient. The individuals in the team also have the ability to play with patience, which is important. You know, they've got the right players in the right system playing the right way. And the thing that gets me about this Penrith team is, if it was just about their defence, they could win the premiership, right? I don't think that anybody doubts that. If you said the Panthers aren't going to score more than 10 points in any of their finals games, I don't think anyone would look at it and say, oh man, that's going to be easy to beat them then. Like, it's still going to be a horror show to beat them, you know, because their defence is going to be good. But I think the spectre that has got to be in some teams' minds, because like Penrith knows they can do it. And there's some of these teams that they're going to be playing in finals, like the Broncos, that don't know if they can do it, right?
Yeah.
The Warriors don't know if they can do it. The Sharks teams, like, there's not too many teams there that know they can win a premiership. If they go into a big game against Penrith, that first half that they did against the Parramatta Eels in last year's grand final, where no team is ever going to beat them if they play like that, everyone's going to be thinking about that at some point. Because if Penrith does that, I don't care who's in the top 8. Penrith plays like that against any of them, they're not going to get close to Penrith. And the fact that Penrith can play that football is fucking scary, because they haven't done it since.
No, that's right.
Like, you know what? They maybe from in that Storm game after they were down 18-0, they did that a little bit to the Storm, where it was just like the Storm were not in the contest all of a sudden, and it was over. Even though they were up 14-0, Penrith just basically did what they want with them for the rest of the game. And it was shocking. What did they win? 38-14, something like that? That was fucking creepy. Like, that was a creepy performance. And it was kind of like that first half in the grand final where, you know, 10 minutes in, you're watching this team absolutely annihilate the second best team in the competition. And it was fucking weird. And you go into half time and, like, the grand final's over at half time.
Yeah.
It was so strange.
Yeah, that was just utter control.
I've never seen that at club level.
No.
I've seen it in Origin, and I've definitely seen it. The Australian team's probably the best example, where they've done it to Great Britain a couple of times and New Zealand a couple of times too, where they just come out and it's like their punishment for 40 minutes, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't know. It's one of those things where I reckon a lot of people won't realise until many years later, when a lot of the Panthers players in this side have retired, that people will go, shit, we saw a pretty special team there.
Yeah. I think that it'll maybe start to kick in if they do the 3 straight. Because like, all of us, like, you can line that up as a marker against so many other great teams really easily. And then if they start next season good, if they did 3 straight, like, that'd be outrageous.
Absolutely. Not just outrageous, insane.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing, and we've talked about it, the weird thing is this should be where this team is at and their ages and everything. This should be the start of their contending. And like, for most teams that have achieved what they've done already, it's the end of their contending.
Yeah.
So what, like, this is uncharted territory.
It really is.
Having said that, they might lose the grand final, lose a couple more players, and be fucking fighting for the finals in 2 years' time. Who fucking knows?
Now, the other thing that there is one Penrith team that's not doing as great, and that is the New South Wales Cup side.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in the hunt for a top 5 spot there.
Yeah.
But they really do need to win their last 2 games, and one of those last 2 games is against the top of the table, North Sydney Bears.
It's going to be a big clash, hey?
It is, yeah. A clash between the 2 best defensive teams in the comp, no less.
I think that they've relied on their New South Wales Cup team a little bit more this year, and I think that's maybe some of it.
Yeah, it has a fair bit. They've used a lot more players, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just having a look now. They've used 38 players in their New South Wales Cup team this year.
Yeah.
Which is a fair whack.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you think of like how many players the Panthers have brought up from their New South Wales Cup team to first grade, and like they lost May at the start of the year, so it's straight away you have a player from New South Wales Cup coming up, and I think that there's just been a little bit more rotation than there was last year, but it's a good sign for the New South Wales Cup. It's a really good sign.
Absolutely it is. What else has been going around the world for rugby league?
We got the test matches announced at the end of the season.
Right. We had to go through that.
Yeah.
Where is that?
What would that be?
Let me do something foolish.
I know what you're going to do.
Yeah. I'm going to go where they should be.
Yes.
Oh. Well, this is exciting.
Okay.
The International Rugby League.
Yes.
On their homepage.
Yes.
Their main story is International Calendar 2023 to 2030. Updated list of fixtures.
Oh, they've got dates on their calendar?
Let's read. It says, when was this? 2 days ago.
Excellent.
Oh, they do have dates.
Okay.
August 26th. This is in 8 days' time.
Mm-hmm.
The Czech Republic plays Serbia.
Nice.
September 2, Wales plays England in the Physical Disability Rugby League.
Okay.
September 16, Montenegro v Malta. September 23, Malta v Bulgaria. Also September 23, in the women's games, Jamaica plays USA and USA plays Canada 2 days after that. These are both in the West Indies.
Mm-hmm.
September 27, Canada plays Jamaica. And September 30 in the men's, Netherlands plays Norway. Then October 14 and 15. Actually, I've put down which ones are on what day here. The Pacific Championships.
Okay.
So in the men, we've got Australia versus Samoa at Townsville. PNG v Cook Islands at Port Moresby. And for the women, Australia plays New Zealand at Townsville. And Samoa plays Fiji in Port Moresby. October 21, Malta played Chile in Sydney, and Germany played the Netherlands in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Then the week after, October 21-22, the Pacific Championships continue. In the men, New Zealand v Samoa at Auckland. New Zealand A v Tonga A, also at Auckland. And Fiji v the Cook Islands in Port Moresby. For the women, New Zealand v Tonga in Eden Park, Auckland, and PNG v Cook Islands in Port Moresby. October 22, England v Tonga at St Helens.
Why are they going to St Helens?
They need to try and get more people to watch the game over there, obviously.
Fuck.
October 28, England v Tonga at Huddersfield. They're hitting all the big spots. They're hitting all the big spots.
They're going to all those places where they don't get crowds for International Rugby League. What the fuck?
Well, also on October 28, if you don't want to watch England play Tonga, you can watch the Philippines play Malta at Cabramatta Stadium.
Much better contest.
Philippines will also play Malta in the women's game at the same ground.
Mm-hmm.
And the Czech Republic will play Netherlands. Also that same weekend, Australia v New Zealand in the Pacific Championship in the men and the women, both at Amy Park.
You going?
And, well, I mean, I don't know, probably not.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't think that far ahead, man. I don't know. I don't even forward plan what I'm going to do the next podcast episode.
What if I try to make it down there?
All right.
Okay, I'll have to see. I'll have to see how the finances go, but I'll try and make it down there, and we'll try and sort that out, eh?
If you come down here and you avoid drinking any coffee,
yeah,
you will be able to afford to buy a house somewhere.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But the coffee in Melbourne is so different to everywhere else. Like, it's so special, isn't it?
It is, but at the same time, it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is from someone who doesn't drink coffee. But trust me, I'm fairly confident that I'm right. But I'll charge you more for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. November 4, the Pacific Cup final in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
England v Tonga at Headingley.
So they'll get a good crowd there at Headingley.
Yeah, that's where the first game should be.
Yeah.
The second game should be like Old Trafford or something. A third one you could have at Wembley.
Take
it to some proper grounds where you can get some decent crowds.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Stop. Why are you playing in towns? Like, you're fucking
How come one of these
ridiculous.
wasn't at Salford?
Why can't we play like, what's that fucking ground that's in Bradford that's half built? Not Odsal, the soccer stadium.
Oh, I don't know.
What's it called?
Most of their stadiums look half built.
They've got this soccer stadium in Bradford, and the Bulls played there for some time after they'd moved from Odsal. And imagine if you got, say, Old Trafford, but you cut 3/4 of it out with a knife and put it to the side, but you've still got these big giant parts of the stadium there. That's kind of what it looks like. Valley Parade, maybe?
Oh, right. It's kind of like a Brookvale Oval, Leichhardt Oval sort of hybrid.
But if you made it gigantic.
Yep.
Valley Parade.
And didn't put white ants in it. Or asbestos.
It might. I don't even know. It's still got to be there, surely.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'll continue with this. November 4, Norway plays Greece. November 5, the Pacific Bowl final in Port Moresby. Serbia plays Greece in the women in November 11. That's it as far as actual dates go.
Mm-hmm.
On the rest of the calendar / wish list, 2024 Pacific Championships. That's all they've got penciled in there.
That's it.
2025 Ashes Series. That's all they've got penciled in there.
Yeah.
2026 Rugby League World Cup in Southern Hemisphere. Like, let's not pick a country. Let's just put it on somewhere below the fucking equator.
If I said the Pacific Championship was being played on Mars, it would only be slightly less of a chance that you would pick where it is on Mars than what the fucking International Rugby League has done.
Let's pop it in Venezuela. What could go wrong? That's in the Southern Hemisphere.
Oh, shit.
The Democratic Republic of Congo could have it.
What we need is Donald Trump to take over Brazilian Rugby League, and we'd have it being played in Brazil. I've got some good stadiums. They're the best ever. You got to trust me on this one.
Oh, if only. 2027 Kiwi Tour to England. Yeah. 2028 Kangaroo Tour to England and a Women's World Cup. 2030 Men's World Cup. So 2029 can get fucked.
2029 just gets skipped.
There's nothing.
FYI, the world 2029 doesn't exist.
Yeah. So if you want to have another pandemic, bam, there's your slot.
There it is. There's the slot for the pandemic. Oh, shit.
We've allocated time to have a virus go around the rest of the world for a year.
Nice.
There we go.
The great syphilis virus, 2029. I would have called it the great herpes pandemic of 2029, but I know that our Salford listeners would be like, you can't catch it twice.
Wow, that's what you have other generations for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've hit everyone with the peaking. Now, I've got to say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said there was something that Corey Parker had to say.
Oh, yeah.
That you were withholding from me. And all I said was, is it a fucking stupid idea? You said, I'm not going to reveal anything.
So You know that there's these radio stations that popped up around fucking Australia SEN.
Yeah.
Right. And like any time I see content from them, I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't listen to radio. So Corey Parker's on one of these stations and he goes, and he's like, he's being serious too. He's like, I've got an idea.
Well, you have to be because he doesn't have a sense of humour.
I know. I've got an idea. It's called The Joke.
Straight away started with a lie, but continue.
Yeah. It's called, it'd make the NRL more exciting. It's called playing the Joker card. So every team gets a Joker card to play once a season, all right? And he says when you play your Joker card, you have to win by 10 points or more. And if you win by 10 points or more, you get 4 competition points. But if you don't win by 10 points, you only win by 4 points or 6 points, you don't get any competition points. And it's the Joker card. And it would make things so much more exciting.
Oh, Corey. Oh.
That's Corey Parker's great big brain moment.
Oh, man, bless your little heart. You're a fucking idiot.
He's adorable, isn't he?
That's gorgeous. I love it when people have their first idea. It's so pretty. Oh, that's beautiful.
The Joker card.
You know what's great is that I reckon in his mind,
yeah,
he's actually got it in his mind that the player will actually have the physical card in their pocket while they're playing. They'll go up to the referee when they're up by 12. Joker card. It kind of reminds me of, you know, in the WWE when someone wins Money in the Bank and every time you see him for the rest of the year, they're carting around a stupid fucking briefcase everywhere.
Yeah. That's
what he's got them doing. They're carting around with the Joker card. I bet that's where he got the fucking idea from.
Well, I saw somebody, because I wanted to see the comments, and the comments were just, as you can imagine, because it was in a tweet that I saw it, and somebody said, like, this isn't a new idea. This is what we do in fantasy rugby league comps all the time, you know, and it's even called the Joker round or whatever you can use, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is why you can't listen to rugby league people when it comes to running rugby league competitions. Because sometimes they say some dumb shit.
Yeah.
Did you see on NRL 360
no.
there was a bit of, and yeah, you wouldn't have. You don't watch it like I don't. I saw a clip of it, and Laurie Daly had apparently been on the back page. Remember the back page when it used to be good?
Oh, yeah.
That's still going apparently. Anyway,
that was back when they had the 12th man on there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Laurie Daly was on the back page, and he was saying that AFL is absolutely miles bigger than rugby league. And so Laurie Daly is then on NRL 360, and Gordon Tallis, who's very thoughtful and tactful with how he uses words. Actually, I'm a bit like that too when I think about it. But anyway, he says, "Are you all right?" And Laurie Daly says, "Yeah, what do you mean? I'm all right." And Gordon Tallis says, "Well, you were on the back page the other night saying AFL's bigger than rugby league." And Laurie Daly says, "Well, with my betting cap on, it is." Now, the first thing I thought is, hang on, Laurie, weren't you complaining like 3 months ago that you can't get a coaching job in rugby league because of your betting links and that they don't have anything to do with your rugby league coaching? Like, what do you mean your betting hat, right? And so he says, "Well, yeah, Gordon, they are," right? And Gordon says, "What are you talking about?" And Laurie Daly says, and I can't remember the AFL player's name, but he says something like, is there an AFL player called Dustin Martin or something? Dustin.
Yes,
So okay, he says Dustin Martin is the biggest sports star in New Zealand. That's not a rugby union player, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the comments for that,
yeah,
and all these Kiwis were like, who the fuck is that guy?"
Exactly, who?
I saw one person said Laurie Daly is more of a star than Dustin Martin.
I think my knowledge of Dustin Martin has zero to do with the fact of, you know, anything he's actually achieved as a footballer. From memory, his father is a rat bag or something like that.
Let me get, okay, I don't know who it is, right? Do you know what he looks like?
Let
Don't tell me, because I'll describe him. I'm going to describe him.
Let me have a guess, okay? Because I seriously do not pay any attention to AFL down here. It's the only way you can survive down here if you're not an AFL fan. But I'm going to take a guess based on the few AFL footballers I've seen, okay?
Yeah.
Obviously, he's white.
Yeah, well, they all are, yeah.
Right. And he's going to be covered in fucking tattoos like someone from Tamworth.
Yeah.
That's all I can give you, because that pretty much describes nearly all of them.
Probably looks like something wrong with his skin, but you can't tell what it is.
Alopecia?
No, it's like there's, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it without it becoming a legal issue.
Okay.
But it just doesn't look right. A bit unhealthy. Neck tats, I'm guessing.
Ah, right.
Possibly, I don't think a mullet, but some version of a mullet. Like a real, like, shaved down mullet sort of thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm guessing.
Well, I'm pretty sure there was something. I think there was something to do with his father being involved in some sort of drama.
Okay, I'm going to look this person up, Dust.
And the only other thing I know of was he had some incident where he threatened to poke or stab someone with chopsticks at a restaurant. And the thing is, out of all of this, is the only details I bothered to record was the name of the restaurant was Mr. Miyagi Japanese Restaurant. That's it. That's all I know. I don't even know what year that was. It was probably 10 years ago or something like that. But that's about all I know. Yeah. I don't know which team he plays for. If I walked past him on the street, I wouldn't know who he was.
I found a picture of him.
Okay.
I'll describe him.
Sure, go for it.
Caucasian.
Bam, I'm 50% of the way there.
Tattoos down his arm and on his neck.
Tamworth tattoos?
Yep,
I've got that. All right, I've got him.
He's got like a tattoo around his neck.
I mean, that's key Tamworth tats, that is.
Yeah. He's got a shaved head, but the sides are completely shaved.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So that's like when you get the mullet, but then you have mullet regret.
Yeah, and you shave it right down, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. We picked him.
Big in Kiwi Town.
Huge in New Zealand. He's one of the top 1,200 most well known. Fucking ridiculous.
Oh, man.
Fucking Laurie Daly. Honestly, Loz. Well, it's been a good episode.
Oh, it has. Fancy finishing on the AFL player.
Well, you got to branch out into different sports sometimes.
Sometimes, but just
and
not
AFL.
That one. Just not that one.
Yeah. Fuck, it's a bludger of a sport.
While we're branching out to other sports, did you watch the Matildas?
I saw the end of their penalty shootout that they won.
Yep.
Which was pretty cool. And then I had the Australia versus England game on kind of in the background. And it was interesting. That England team is very good. You can just tell that, even not as a soccer fan. And the Australian team, the thing that I got about it, they were very casual at the back. And when they're up front, they looked pretty dangerous. There were a couple of shots that they got on target that they really should have put away. But, they did really well. It was good to see. I just hope that a lot of the people that are supporting them right now and saying, oh, this is great, is it? I hope that they go to the women's A-League games.
Exactly my thoughts, because too often we have here, and it's not just the women's, it's even in the men's. We'll see it most prominently down here in Victoria when the Australian Open tennis is on.
Mm.
You drive around anywhere and any tennis court is fucking full of people playing tennis until the end of January, and then the fucking things are empty for the next 11 months. And I fear that that's what's going to happen with this World Cup, because it happens with the men's World Cup as well. Whenever the Socceroos do, moderate, decent, or win a pool game or something like that,
Yeah.
Everyone's out kicking the ball around. They're all playing soccer. I'd hate for this to be another flash in the pan fad thing for supporters. That'd be the worst thing that could happen to them because they have done remarkably well.
Yeah, they did. They did great, and it was cool to see everyone like got behind it. It was great, and it was the other cool thing was that I think we're almost, or the media is anyway, is almost out of that thing of trying to pit sports against each other, like. One being successful is detrimental to all the others. Like that's always I found ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see that sort of thing sort of dying off a little bit more as you know, and it's going to take bit by bit. I think as you know, the corporate media, it's not mainstream, but the corporate media influence is dying off, and people just ignore that sort of shit. But I do hope that all these people that are saying how much fun they had and stuff, they take that towards the women's A-League, because if you saw that getting crowds as well, that'd be brilliant.
Bloody oath.
I
barely got to see it because most of the games had started or partway through by the time I got home from work. So, but I did get to see the penalty shootout.
That's the worst way to finish a sporting contest, hey?
That shootout was so everything about soccer. 2 hours and not a fucking goal was scored, and in the space of 15 minutes there's bloody 11 of them.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The thing that got me was because, like, the female goalkeepers obviously can't get across to the corners of the goal as well as a man can, just because they're smaller. They haven't got the kind of explosiveness when they do make their move. And so my guess is that's why they were the women kind of aimed for the bottom right-hand corner so much, because it's not easy money, but it's the most likely to work. And I'm guessing that's why there were so many posts hit when they did it, because that's kind of what you do in women's soccer. But just losing that way, because it's like playing one sport and then all of a sudden you're almost playing a completely different sport for a place in the semi-final. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. And then to lose to England. Oh.
Yeah, to lose to England sucked. But look, the goals that I saw the English women score, they were really, really good. And like, you just got to watch them and be like, wow, that's, you can't argue with that sort of classy finish.
I was going to say there should be a rule that every one goal that the home team scores, because they've had to fund the games and they've got to host everyone, that one goal should be worth 3.
You're saying that the whole World Cup should be a joke around?
Hey, now we're talking.
I've got an idea, Andrew. I've been thinking about it for 3.5 seconds. Let me tell you about it.
Is there anyone we know who could probably pitch this to? They might pick it up and run with it.
Oh, shit.
That would be a win.
That would be brilliant. Everyone would be so excited about it.
Yeah. Because then we can just claim the World Cup. Like, because we'd have that many goals. There's no point having a final.
Anyway, Andrew, that's been a good podcast. I haven't had to edit any of it out.
It descended pretty quickly right there.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. There was nothing there that was bad.
No. I'm going to do a super hard edit too.
Yeah, make it really rock solid hard. Yeah. Even actually just go halfway through a word. Long pause, then halfway through a word.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. It'll be good.
That'll be brilliant. There was nothing. We actually did that on purpose. There was actually no hard edit. Seriously.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you check us out on all the socials. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, MySpace. God, there's so many of these fucking things. It's actually not even Twitter anymore. It's X.
Yeah.
So check us out on X. Let's say with some weird emphasis. And we'll catch you all next time.